Hi everyone, Midrashat Bogrot out there. We wanted to bring you a little Torah here for this week's Parsha Mishpatim. Let's start with the opening pasuk. If you have a chumash, you can take a chumash and look, and you might know this pasuk by heart. Ve'ela mishpatim asher tasim lifneihem. These are the laws that you, Moshe, will put before them. That's not a verb that we usually think goes along with teaching Torah, right? You expect to see ve'ela mishpatim asher, that you'll teach them, or that you'll go over with them, that you'll say to them, but that you'll put in front of them is not a verb that you'd expect to see. That's actually a verb that we find in Nach, that has to do with serving people food. You put lasim ochal lifnei mishu, but not laws. So what the Midrash states is that you would put halachot before someone in a way in which you put food in front of somebody. And just as we put food in front of people, fully prepared, ready to eat, palatable, so too the laws that Moshe is teaching Bnei Yisrael now have to be really accessible to them, palatable, something they can really chew on and understand, and take in spiritually, religiously, which means that not just in the way that Hashem is saying it to him here, which is the outline, but with all of the halachot that go with it, the Torah Shebaal Peh, that we know must go along with it. So the truth is, this is really a hint to Torah Shebaal Peh, some of the oral law that's going to need to accompany these mitzvot in order to make it really accessible and understandable to Bnei Yisrael. Okay? Something to consider as you're reading all of these mitzvot. Now, when we go through these mitzvot in Parshat Mishpatim, we might be a little surprised because post Matan Torah, you would think that we'd have these really deep, meaningful, religiously elevating ideas. We just had the dibrot at the end of last week's Parsha, and now we start Ve'ela HaMishpatim Asher Tasim Lifneihem. And Rashi states that the word Ve'ela, with that letter Vav, tells us that we're connecting Ve'ela HaMishpatim, and these two need to be said and taught to Bnei Yisrael, and they go along with the dibrot, which were said at Har Sinai during Matan Torah. And you look at these laws, and you're a little surprised to find that they're very mundane, about avadim, about damages, about fighting and assaults and injury, about robbery, and all about the ox, and all sorts of damages. And of course, we have to ask, why go into this? Why not start with something a little bit more inspiring? And what Rav Moshe Feinstein talks about, which is a lesson that I think we speak about here a lot, is that in order to really put to practice all of the high, lofty goals and ideals of the dibrot, you need to come down into this mundane day-to-day in order to see that someone really is a believer, in order to really believe that someone else has taken on Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Let's see how they behave when it comes to their neighbor. Let's see how they treat this fellow Jew, this Kitikne Eved Ivri, who also is B'Tselem Elokim, who was also created B'Tselem Elokim. And when we see how a person is acting day to day, we can see a lot about where they're, those deeper beliefs, where they're holding in those bigger ideals. And I'd like to use a comment by Rav Hirsch to really explain this. Rav Hirsch talks about the ordering of the dibrot in last week's Parsha, and says that if you notice on the first side, what we call, the first half of the dibrot, it's Anochi Hashem Elokecha, and Lo Yeh Lecha Elohim Acharim Al Panai, and Lo Tisa, don't take Hashem's name in vain, and Zechor Yom HaShabbat, and Kaber Et Avicha V'Yatimecha. And when you think about it, it starts with all these big beliefs, Anochi Hashem Elokecha and Lo Yeh. Then we continue into something that has to do with speech, and then we sum up with actions. But on the other side of the dibrot, on the other 5, it's lo tirtzach, lo tin'af, lo tignov, which are all actions. Then lo ta'ana b're'echa et shakar, which is speech. And then lo tachmod, which is feeling. And what Rav Hirsch says is sort of what we're saying here, that the ideal is to take all those high beliefs when it comes to ben adam lamakom, which is the first half of the dibrot. Take those beliefs and bring them down into the way you speak and the manner in which you speak and the way that you treat people. Your actions need to be expressing that belief. I need to see in the way, or God needs to see in the way that you're behaving, that you really do believe in God and in what God's asking you to see around you in the world. But for the other half, for the Ben Adam L'Chavero, the truth is it starts with action, because people are or could be nice to each other, but it could be fake. It could be a chad balev, a chad bapeh. And what the Torah is telling you here is take it to the next level. Let it really shape the way you speak. and let it affect the way you act, and let it go into the speech, and then again internalize it into the way that you feel. When it comes to actions between man to man, the goal is to really feel. It's like acharei pe'ulot nimshachim halevavot. You want to act a certain way, and that's great, but do you really feel that love for your fellow Jew and for your friend? So we end with the feeling, because that's the goal for Ben Adam L'Chavero, that you should really, that's the hardest part, that you should really feel deep down respect and love for everybody. And again, on the other side, Ben Adam L'Makom, the belief is the easy part, right? People say, I believe in God, but we have to see how it translates into their actions. And so I think that's what we're seeing here in Parshat Mishpatim, that we start off with Matan Torah, but the truth is really the next step right away is the day-to-day, it is the mundane, it's how we relate to each other, it's how we take responsibility for our actions, and it's following God's command in these laws that are Ben Adam L'Chavero. So may we strengthen, both parts, our relationship with God, our relationship with man, and hopefully one will impact the other. Our friends can bring us closer to God, and our belief and love for God will help us become closer to man. We miss you here. Shabbat Shalom.